How's everybody doing today?
And decent. Yourself?
And there, we're live.
Good.
Just like that.
Oh no.
Yes.
Oh man, well now I can't say what I was going to say.
Supercalifragilistic.
It's okay. We can make fun of data later. Yeah. So welcome everyone to episode 82. Wow, really? 82 of Casting the Shadows, where we talk about Star Citizen, give our thoughts on things that, at the end of the day, only matter to us.
Probably.
I mean, why not? But yeah, so we've been.
Oh, and our pets. Come on now.
Pets.
Us and our two viewers, and we thank both of you.
Including
Right.
the paid one.
We're paying someone? I'm not aware of this. Who's the money drain? I'm blaming Cam. But yeah, so we've been away for 2 weeks due to Jewish holidays and all that, but we're back. CitizenCon happened 2 weeks ago now. So yeah, obviously CitizenCon happened. It was all digital this year. There was a lot of good information. I think it was a pretty good one.
It was so long ago, I can't remember.
There was some good information, but it was also a little bit subtle with some of it. I don't know. I'll just kind of jump in here. Biggest thing that I thought looked real interesting on it was the bunkers, and that like what we've got, because I had always thought with what we have with bunkers currently, I thought that was just what we were getting, you know, and like, oh yeah, sure, you'll have other like themed ones, and you know there will be a few adjustments here and there, but like they're like, no, this is completely fucking placeholder. We're gonna go and bump this out to be fucking like maybe not Siege of Orison size, but big for each of them. That sounds really fucking cool, because it's like, as it is, one of the things they've said is that, hey, we want it to be where you don't really need to leave a planet to see a lot of content. And just, you know, we weren't getting that yet. But with this idea that they're going toward for the larger bunkers, to where you will even have multiple sections, multiple areas of these bunkers, you can have, hey, here's a general delivery box mission. Cool. Okay, great. You've got that content now here. Hey, you've got hostiles invading from the outside to go and attack it. Maybe it's because it's a refining plant, and I don't know, maybe there's some local wildlife, and some people are like, hey, you're hurting the wildlife, so we're going to go and attack you. Something like that. You might have hostiles coming up from a cavern system or something like that, trying to steal mining stuff. You could have creatures attacking. So you can have multiple ways of just hostiles coming and attacking. You could have larger industrial type missions of either moving cargo around with mules or other things like that, or even stuff like, hey, yeah, our refining plant, it really needs copper as a reagent for some of the stuff here, and we're drastically low on this. All of our shipments are getting delayed here. Can you go and deliver us some? I mean, you can do all kinds of content now with these larger bunkers. I think it's going to be really good.
Honestly, the bunkers were probably the highlight to me, just because I was in the same boat. I thought, yeah, these are the bunkers we're getting. Maybe they'll expand them in the future, but these are the bunkers. But no, we're actually gonna get full-fledged underground facilities, Black Mesa style, where there's complete like narrative, environmental storytelling, and just how it's designed. And, like, you look at it and you go, I know what this place is for. Versus the bunkers as they are right now. Yeah, they're labeled as storage facilities, but like you look at it, and some of them are kind of makeshift meth labs or whatever on Lyria, and some on the other moons. But for the most part, their location is somewhat ambiguous, because it is just placeholder FPS map for FPS combat. But it will be interesting to get more role-specific locations like that, so that we can actually have more fun and maybe have more than just combat missions.
Yep.
Maybe delivery, maybe maintenance, engineering gameplay.
I thought overall that they threaded the needle. Oh, like the whole sitcon thing in general, just because there was a lot of information that they gave us, but they also did it. I agree. There was a lot of subtlety in it, and in doing it that way and not being, pom poms and rah rah, they didn't. I felt like they didn't overhype. They also didn't set expectations high, and so I think in the broad sense of everything, they did well. I personally was kind of nonplussed until I started going back over some of the content, really kind of listening, digesting it. And that's when I started picking out a lot more. And to me, the biggest thing was actually totally what I wasn't expecting, which was the Squadron 42 content discussion with Chris and Tyrer. But it wasn't because it was Squadron 42 content. It was the fact that they were openly discussing very specific topics that are overall important to the game. I'm not going to say that they've made the right choices, but the fact that they are thinking about it, and they were openly, they're saying out loud to us, hey, we are putting thought and process in, this is where we're at, I thought was really good. So in the sense of like a lot of the stuff that Rich was talking about like gameplay being intuitive with the controls and not having to like go through a keyboard combination, alphabet to figure out how to interact with things, or the whole body movement, mantling, jumping, climbing ideas, like how it should be a natural progression. That kind of stuff I think is really, really important to me. To be honest, I actually don't care about Squadron 42, but the fact that they're at this stage of evolution and discussing those topics, I think was really important.
Yeah.
It also showed like they're kind of using Squadron 42 as like an in-house test bed for all the systems that then eventually go into the PU, which most was kind of new already, but this definitely showed that to be the case in a more experimental way than we thought.
I'll argue about it later, but I think this proved that some of our concerns about the Squadron 42 being single player game and it directing how the PU is going to work in some of the mechanics, and whether that is good or bad thing, I think they just proved that. And I'm going to throw it out on the table now. We can circle back around to it, but I think the flight mechanics is a good example of that. In a bad way. I'll let Data.
Assuming you're talking about master modes.
Yep.
I think with master modes, and that was probably the biggest kind of out of left field I think that we got from it. I definitely see where they're coming from with master modes, and to some degree I agree that at least to some level slowing down combat will kind of be the fix they're looking for without having to drastically overhaul everything again with it. My biggest concern with it is just the balancing. As always, it's in the fine details here, because my worry is that if you have a small ship, like let's say if you have a prospector and it's out just going around doing its thing, he gets his ore, cool, great, and then he goes to fly off and go back to the refinery. So you can assume while he's mining, he's in SCM mode. So shields are up, weapons are up, tools are up. He goes to fly back and gets interdicted. well, shit, I was in quantum travel mode, and now I'm sitting here, sitting fucking duck, praying for my shields to come online before I get ganked. If they don't do the balance well, it's going to be a ganker's paradise. Because, of course,
It actually already is, Mando, or Cam. It in a bigger sense than what you're talking about. Because think of a big ship, which is basically what they described with the shield controls.
Mhm.
You're gonna have all it's gonna take. Okay, so it's gonna be an MMO. First off, so let me backtrack a little bit.
Mhm.
I absolutely agree. Something had to be done with the flight mechanic system. I absolutely agree with that. And I think maybe where they're trying to go, I agree as well, is maybe a good idea. But how they're doing it, the mechanics that they've chosen to follow, is what you described, a ganker's paradise. Because think of it this way: it's derived from rule sets that they're trying to create for Squadron 42, which is a single player game meant for one-on-one, essentially, one v a few.
Or at best, hero player versus NPC.
Right. And it's not set up for what's going to be essentially one person versus a pirate group of players that is God knows how many people strong. Whether that's, I'm just picking random numbers here, insert your own as necessary, but let's say 25 ships, single seaters, or maybe it's 5, multi-personnel ships, think hammerheads, fully manned with players in every turret. Either way, this mechanic is completely broken, because think of a hull C. Think of how many weapons and armaments it has to protect itself. It doesn't have, if they retcon it, maybe it has a turret, 2 turrets, versus 2 or 3 hammerheads, which is, let's say, is acceptable for a pirate run organization. All you'd have, and let's take it from the point of view of the pirate org, all you have to do to keep that hull C from jumping out is have one really fast fighter that just flies around that ship and harasses it, and the game mechanics will not allow that guy to go into quantum, right? Because the minute he does, your hammerheads with all their turrets are just, you're done. There is no defense. Let's say you're that whole C driver. There is absolutely no defense. Nothing you can do in the mechanics to protect yourself from that. Meanwhile,
to be fair though, even one hammerhead versus any kind of a single seater, that single seater absolutely should be on the complete defensive and should only be seeking to escape. But
right,
there
but
is
you
no
can't
winning.
even do that now, is the point. Like you
Well,
can't even try to escape, because all that's you're limited. Everything is limited. And let me go on record with this first. When I first heard about this, I actually thought, this sounds okay. I'm kind of interested. I like this.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I actually started delving more and more into the mechanic and hearing other sides of the coin kind of being passed around throughout the community that it started raising questions. And I finally got to the point where I'm like, oh, this is actually a really bad mechanic for the MMO, not for Squadron 42. Go ahead. Sorry, Cam.
Bear in mind though that for one thing, of course, with all this stuff, I won't say I guarantee, but I'm pretty damn certain that if it does turn into a ganker's paradise, CIG will see it, and CIG will go, hey, whoops, we fucked up, and they will go and take a look at it. But in that scenario, so let's say that you've got the hammerheads moving in on a prospector. It's like, honestly, if you have a hammerhead versus a prospector loses no matter what. Now, that being said, so let's say, though, that the hammerheads are far enough away that they can't actually get a shot. Because realistically, it wouldn't matter to the hammerheads if the prospector shields are up or not. Prospector's fucking toast if they're actually in range of that thing. But let's say that they do have an interceptor, and the interceptor's job is to try to go and keep the prospector pinned long enough for the hammerheads to come along and be able to block them up, blow them up, whatever the case might be. At that point, though, yeah, you've got some boundaries you want to be aware of. I can't fly over here because if I do, I'm toast. But beyond that, at that point, it's not you versus hammerhead, it's you versus interceptor, which is a much closer fight, especially in terms of running. But because my biggest concern with the whole aspect of it is just those first 5 seconds of the conflict, because it's just that, hey, you've just been intercepted, or you're just cruising along, blam, someone's in your face, they're shooting, oh god. That's the biggest concern I have, because within about 5 seconds there, you're going to be able to switch over, get your shields up. Okay, you're at least in a position to try to do something here, try to fight back, or alternatively to just go and punch engines and fucking scoot out of there.
What they're saying about the shields, as far as when you come into a place, they're saying that your shields essentially will automatically be coming up. So there's not like there's not a warm up
damage. Well, no, you're still gonna.
They clarified.
Yeah.
I just want to inject this real quick. They clarified that your shield energy is basically going to get stored in a capacitor kind of deal. So when you come in, they'll recharge it very fast. It's not like you're going to be recharging from 0 like normal. Your charge will immediately
go up your shields.
It's when they're coming down that they'll be slow. But
so really the biggest danger you have is.
One sec, Cam.
Go on.
Sorry, the one major thing that you're missing though is that all the speeds are dropped, and where the option that you do have now that you won't have is that that single player right now has speed, which makes it harder to hit him if he does minor movement as he's getting away. If you drop all the speeds, he can't go as fast, which means more hits land while he's in that transition time to get out of it.
Yes.
That's why
however, there is going to be one thing that should, and it depends entirely when, how, etc. CIG do this. But there's going to be one major mechanic that'll go and counteract that, and that's going to be physicalized armor. Once you have that, even though your shield, you take that prospector, and they get interdicted. There's a mantis there, and they're like, oh, I'm just cruising, man. I'm just trying to punch out of here. Even if you have that interceptor trying to go and fly after him, keep him pinned, that interceptor, let's assume this prospector here, they're going, I'm not even going to try to fight. There's no point. If I try to fight, I'm dead. I'm just going to try to punch out of here. So they're staying. They are not switching over to STM. So they've been interdicted. They're staying in quantum mode, and they're just going, I just need speed. I need to get out of here. I need to disengage. One, that already means that they're going to be faster than that interceptor. Maybe. Well, but let's assume that the interceptor, being an interceptor, has enough speed to go and try to chase this thing down, because that's kind of the point of them, right? So it's going and it's harrying the prospector while the prospector is sitting there charging up its quantum engine again, or quantum engine's cooling down, whatever the case might be. They're stuck there for 10-20 seconds or whatever until they can punch out of there. Meanwhile, that interceptor is harrying them. While that's going on, that physical armor is going to be that difference between just, hey, you got ganked, and hey, I made it out of there. I need to do some repairs here. I got a little scratched and fucked up, maybe. Maybe some stuff isn't great. Maybe I lost one of my cargo pods even, but I'm not dead.
I'm just curious, Cam, where are you getting the physicalized armor from? Because as far as I know, there's only like 2 ships in the game that are said to have physical armor, and that's
all ships. All ships will have physicalized armor.
He's talking about later down the line when every ship does have armor. Although just on the topic of the
we don't
now,
know that they're going to have that.
But on the topic of the now with the master modes, the problem with it is with a big ship like you pointed out, call sign, like a Carrack. How long does it take for the Carrack's shields to charge up?
Fucking forever.
Right, like you can be from ArcCorp to Microtech, and your shields will finally be fully charged when you arrive at Microtech, and that's 59 million kilometers.
No, what they're talking about doing with that is essentially the state. How do I put this? When you come, it's the concern isn't about when you arrive somewhere, but essentially when you arrive somewhere, you're essentially going to have your shields up, unless you were like, in other words, unless your shields were taken down because of combat while you started the transit time. Think of it as like while you're jumping, while you're already in midstream, your shields have built back up their capacity. They're not on, but their capacity will be on. So essentially, when you come out of Quantum, it might be, we don't know exactly. It might be like a second, but essentially, once you drop your Quantum shield, then your shields will be up. That's not the concern. The big concern with this mechanic is the fact that you're going to have to sit there without any weapons, essentially without being able to pick up speed to wait for your shields to come down before you can jump out. That's the problem area of this mechanic. It's not the incoming, it's the outgoing process. And they're lowering all the speeds for everything, which means while you're waiting in that vulnerable window, that actually means you're receiving more hits. The more people there are around you, the more hits you're going to receive, and it's going to be easier to hit you because everything's at slower speeds. That's the concern here. Go for it, Cam. Sorry.
It's already passed.
Okay.
If you guys haven't already, I believe it's Space Tomato had Black Maze and Avenger 1 on his stream.
Yeah.
And they
Avenger did a great job of talking about it.
Yeah, but Avenger had a very good point, and that is with the model we have right now, if you get ganked by somebody and you're in a freighter or something, you're probably going to die. If they brought an interdictor ship, you're not getting away. You're dead.
Right.
And there is no chance to run currently in the game right now.
But what you could do, go Cam.
A good point is that at what point, like you had noted earlier, if they bring 5 multi-crew ships, and again, our player character is in a single prospector, it's like at a certain point you're fucked. Like pretty much no matter what you do at a certain point, you can get into a situation or get dragged into a situation to where you're really just SOL. It shouldn't be common. It shouldn't be easy for it. But yeah, if you're in a single seater and there's 5 fucking hammerheads sitting around you that are hostile, you're pretty much fucked.
Yes, absolutely. There are conditions that's going to happen, but this is going to be guaranteed 100% of the time. Like, in other words, with the new master modes, the way that they're going, you're going to have pirate organizations that organize themselves specifically around this mechanic to essentially, hey, we got one guy who goes in and harasses while we've got 5 others, and there is no other way to get around this. Like, even if this guy has other fighters to support him, he's still stuck. Whereas the current system right now, you guys are right, like there is certain situations where there's nothing you can do, but there are some situations where there might be a way of escaping or hiring more people to be around you, and you still have that faster getaway mode. That's the only big thing that I'm trying to point out here. I'm not saying the whole mechanic is broken. There's parts to it that are broken, and one of the biggest things is bringing the speeds down, because that takes away if you think about it this way, essentially what we're doing is we're negating the top speeds of all ships. And while that seems like, okay, well, we're doing it across the board, so it makes sense. What's the point in what's the point in having the Herald versus you're decapitating the Herald and making it as fast as the Prospector. Like that's where the problems lie, is that you're essentially, your one rule for all is taking away that single point option that might be there if that one ship is there, if that makes sense. In other words,
well, let me do a thought experiment here.
Yeah,
real quick,
absolutely.
Okay? Let's assume that generally people are going to be traveling in QCM mode because
Okay.
faster speed, you can do your short quantum jumps, whatever.
Yep.
If you get pulled out of quantum, or you jump somewhere and there's somebody waiting there for you, you're already in QCM mode. You can already accelerate out of the area. They're not in QCM mode, so they have to wait whatever time it takes for them
How
to
did they pull
transition to
you
the
out
new mode
if
to
you
try to
can?
catch up to you.
But how did they
Mantis?
pull you out of QCM?
Mantis or
In other words,
something?
if they pulled you, question, if they
You
pulled you out of
don't
QCM,
automatically
how are you
get
going to be
switched.
able?
One at a time.
How are you going to be able to jump back out again? Whatever in other words, that Mantis that they
You have
use
to
is going to
outrun 'em.
stop you.
See, yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to. That's what I'm getting to, right? The Mantis cannot be in QCM mode if it has its interdictor field up.
Yeah,
It's
also,
stuck
the Mantis is
in.
not an interceptor. I don't believe
Right.
so. So it'll be able
No.
to pull them out, but it's going to be sitting there going, "Okay, I pulled them out. My job is done." Like even if the Mantis switches over, you sit there for a good 5 seconds going, "Duh, what happened?" And then you go
Right.
and you start accelerating out. That Mantis will not be able to go and catch you.
Oh, but all he's got to do is fire
And
off
even if
again.
even if it does, it has to switch modes back, which is going to slow it down to keep your
Yes.
interdictor field up. So it's not like
you
it can
essentially
stick with
keep on
you.
escaping.
Yeah, basically, even if there's an interceptor there, the interceptor is going to have to switch modes to turn on its weapons, which means it's going to automatically slow down. So if you're already in QCM mode, you're probably going to be able to get away. And also, I want to say that in the future, interceptors are not going to be the God mode, kill everything vehicles that they are now.
Yeah,
True,
no.
but
They are
now,
never designed to be the fighter superiority weapon that everybody uses them as at the moment.
Yeah, interceptors, as they're intending with this feature, and again, this is what I took from it, but it sounds like interceptors are going to be, in terms of them being fighters, they're going to be one of the weakest fighters. Their job is just to be bridging that gap between quantum and SCM, to go and give a chance, maybe not a great chance, but a chance of catching up to someone punching out, to try to go and harry and harass them, to get that damage in, to stall them, hit their engines, whatever, before they can go and escape out of there. So that's really going to be their job. But that being said, then, so again, let's say you have this pirate, and they have a Mantis, pulls people out, and then they got an interceptor there, and the Mantis and interceptor work together to go and try to take down their, the Prospector or whatever else. If you just go and punch out, sure, let's make the assumption that the interceptor can go and keep up and harass you, but meanwhile, that Mantis is getting left in the fucking dust. Because if it wants to move, it can't go, because on top of which, too, and I guarantee they do this, not only does it have to drop out of quantum and back into SCM mode, which that already is going to go and put some hard brakes on its speed, then it has to go and charge up the QED field, and that's going to take a little bit of time to go and charge up.
Right, because it's
Meanwhile,
not going to be instant.
I got two of them in my group. Like that. All I'm saying is, think MMO organizations before
if you get ambushed by 20 people and you're solo, you're already fucked. Realistically speaking, If you get ambushed by a large group like that and you're solo, you're gone.
Okay. Here's what I'm trying to get at, guys. Yes.
Before you do
something
that,
needs to
let me just say
Okay.
that we had a very long discussion about all of these things in the XGR org, because as you can imagine, the idea of SCM really goes against what we like to do as racers. And
Yeah.
I personally don't like arbitrary speed caps. It feels very gamey. But if you take some time to try to think it through and take your feelings out of it, which is very hard to do, but just think of it from a game perspective. The setup that they have right now has a lot of potential, and most of the problems that we're talking about that are going to be game breaking or whatever are they're number problems that can be adjusted. It's
and balanced out. And I mean, like I said,
and balanced.
I guarantee they're going to get it right eventually. It's just we might, whenever they roll out master modes here, as seems to be the case. Remember the medical tool. As soon as they rolled that out, you got people running around overdosing other people in the fucking safe zones here. It's like there might be a bit of growing pains here when they drop that out, but I guarantee if it's like, hey, yeah, turns out if you have a mantis and it's going and able to interdict people, intercept people, hold them there, and it's just OP as hell, they're not going to go and just sit there and go, well, sucks to be you guys. Guess the mantis is the new meta. No, they're going to sit there and go, okay, we need to go and change this. The bigger problem is it might take them a while to get the fucking changes pushed, but I guarantee they won't let that stand.
I honestly think that SCM mode is only going to be a combat mode. For people who do other things, it's not going to matter that much.
Well, I would say, I wouldn't say it's just going to be combat, because like I was saying with like a prospector or a mantis, for you to use the tools that are on the ship. So if I'm on a prospector and I want to go and pull out my mining laser, I'm expecting that I'm going to be in SCM mode, not quantum.
Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, you're only going to be pulling that out when you're ready to do the actual mining. You're not going to be flying around in mining mode.
But also too, if I'm just putzing about in an asteroid field here, I might be staying in SCM mode. But that also means though, hey, I've got my fucking shields up. Because also too, if I go and overload a rock, I want those fucking shields up.
My biggest issue is the speed caps. The other parts of the mechanics I actually thought were okay. Like I had said at the beginning, when I initially heard about this rule sets, I was like, oh, okay, sounds good. So what I've been trying to say here isn't like the whole system's broken. They got to, that's not what I'm trying to get at. There's very specific parts of it that you guys are absolutely right, have to get tweaked, because the way they've been presented so far, those specific parts are broke. Like they're not correct. They're not going to work. And that's all I'm getting at. For me, it's that the specific problem that I have is the speed caps at the high end. Personally, I think this is just, there's always going to be a little bit of that problem, because this is Chris Roberts trying to apply what he wants to gamify combat. And right or wrong, it's his system. It's his game. It's his system. He gets to make that decision, regardless of what we think. But
Avenger One had another really good point that I just want to put here.
Okay.
And that is that we already have a speed cap. It's very high right now, but we have one, and we have to have a speed cap because the servers are not able to keep track of players going at infinite speeds all over the place. So SCM just lowers that speed cap, and it's meant for combat, right? And I'll call it kind of a crutch, because if pilots
Yeah,
are really good
that's
skilled,
you're
then they won't.
arguing that a bad idea is okay because it's already in place.
No, I'm saying that there's already a speed cap there.
I know, but I'm
And
saying
while I agree
that's
that it's a gamey system to lower it, there are some benefits that come along with that.
To flip this around, are you saying that they should go and have an uncapped speed limit out to the point of the integer limit that the engine can handle?
I think that there should be a speed cap based upon the mass and the mass of your ship, the power that's generated by your engine, and what you do to that engine to allow it, and what your human body character, body limit, physiological body limitations should allow. Not arbitrary, I take my foot off the gas, the game engine stops my ship from traveling forward.
Well, I mean, to be fair,
That's
though,
all I'm getting at.
all the numbers on the back end of the game are arbitrary. You know, they go and
Yeah.
they say, hey, this ship has this mass. Cool. Well, it's a tiny ship, but it weighs so much because it's built out of unobtainium versus
Right.
this larger ship is built out of plastic aluminum that's whatever the fuck. It's all arbitrary.
It is, and that's my point. Like that, those numbers shouldn't be arbitrary. They should have.
You can't not have them be arbitrary. It's a video game. We can't build this shit real life and we'll measure it.
No, but you can create your own. You can create a standardized metric that each system will comply with.
I think we're going too deep down the rabbit hole.
Oh, okay. All I'm getting at is I'm not saying you got to go and actually do real world science to figure out the weight of fucking see-through aluminum compressed. No, all I'm saying is you come up with a set of numbers and you follow those numbers. Whereas right now, each ship and each component is a different team's random idea of what a number is and what it should mean.
How do you know there isn't a backing to the numbers they're throwing in?
Because they did that and they took them away. That's how the initial engine was actually created. The flight mechanic engine was actually created, was supposed to follow physics. And then the guy who created it was like, this is what we're going to have to do, Chris Roberts. And Chris Roberts was like, yeah, but I don't like those mechanics. And that guy left the company and we got the new flight mechanics, which we're creating a bunch of numbers behind the scenes to get it to do what we want it to do. That didn't work, and now we have the third one. I'm not trying to argue with you, Cam. All I was trying to give you is my opinion, which is I think that the physics needs to have a little bit more of a place. In other words, I'm not saying they go and do the actual ragdoll modeling, but just say like, hey, the human body can't withstand more than like 9 Gs it for a couple seconds before you start having physical consequences to what you do, what happens to you, not just blacking out, but I'm talking like you start killing yourself. And that would change how ships fly. And I'm not talking in atmosphere, I'm talking like in outer space. When you try and make an adjustment, that you would start causing problems to your physical crew. That would be a limiter. Instead of just picking a random number and saying, no ship can go beyond 1,000 meters per second. Like, think about it this way. Think of the gameplay that we're taking away from every single player when it comes to being able to tweak your engine and your engine components by just saying, you know what, congratulations, you got a Herald, you got the fastest ship in the system, in the game. There's no point in doing anything with your components because it's capped.
Besides, you can't.
That's what this new mechanic is going to do. It's capping everything.
Well,
I fully disagree, but that's my opinion.
Okay.
Like I said, I feel like this is going way too fucking deep down the rabbit hole of assumptions and ideas here.
So for context, pretty much the whole thing from the Master Modes discussion was they're obviously going to be setting SEM now because right now SEM, for instance, in the Cutlass Black, you can go up to about 12 to 1,300 meters per second at max SEM. But now they're going to lower that. SEM is going to be limited to around 200 to 300 meters per second. So they're going to split SEM and QCM or QM. So you have your standard control mode and for combat, and your quantum control mode (QCM) for travel. Obviously, SCM is going to be 200 to 300 per second, and can be briefly exceeded by boosting hard points, which is weapons, whatever utilities you have as hard points. So mining lasers, I presume. Shields, countermeasures are activated, and quantum is disabled during SCM, but obviously, QCM is going to be used for non-combat gameplay. Also, mining and salvage will be okay, according to this, but boosting is now going to be boosting now impacts different directions. QCM disables shields, hard points, countermeasures, but increases your speed to 1200 to 1400 meters a second. Quantum boost meant for reaching short distances very quickly, limited in use. Mechanics to interfere with escapes for interceptors. Core features done, now tuning and tweaking. Changes have been successfully brought fights in close, because the entire idea around this was to get rid of the fast speeds that created the jousting style combat, where essentially people are either circling each other or they're running at each other jousting, and then the process. So the goal is to shift that to maneuverability superiority. Slowing everything down won't work, and soft speed caps didn't work, but in a sense this is kind of a soft speed cap, but there's nothing to say, oh, we can later on have the ability to upgrade our engine to some capacity through subcomponents or something to kind of get the extra out of the engine, go a little faster. But, and again, this is all subject to change anyways, because it's still an alpha. Also, last thing,
the idea of SCM is not going to change. They've
I meant the speed. I meant the
very
speed
long
specifically.
time working on it. I will say that we were supposed to have some people talk more in depth about it in ISC this week, but
there was
we
none.
weren't able to get them. So hopefully we get that soon, because I believe that it was said somewhere that they didn't have enough time to really go into more in depth about the system. So there's still a whole bunch of things that we don't know about functionality and the way things work.
Agreed.
And clearly this is a very contentious issue. I personally would prefer a more in-game system limiting way of changing the maximum speed. But at the end of the day, this is a video game. They're not trying to make a really massively complex simulator. And I think in the end, it's for those of us who want more of a sim environment, this is not going to be the direction we want. But I don't think it's going to be as terrible and broken as some people are saying they expect it to be. And I'm not trying to single you out, call sign, because I know in XGR there are some people who are 100% doom and gloom. The game is over.
Not what I was
don't
trying to
think that's
say
what this
at
is
all,
gonna be,
guys.
but yeah.
I, for the record, I was not. I will say this. I kind of feel like you guys jumped on me. What I was trying to say at the beginning here wasn't so much that like this system is broken and we're all doomed. I was saying what they presented us right now in its current presentation state was broken. That's all I was trying to get at, and I was trying to point out the specific about it. And I feel like we really
way off topic.
Jumped on that rabbit and the Greyhound attacked.
No, well, I mean, what they've got right now absolutely is going to not work in the multiplayer side, because they've literally said,
well,
we've only got it working for single player. Well, they've said
we don't know that.
They've only got it working for Squadron. They haven't thrown anything else outside of Squadron into this thing, and I guarantee they're gonna find all kind of stupid shit and edge cases and other shit they're gonna have to fix with it. Guarantee it.
But along with it, there's some positives, because right now the Hammerhead is basically useless at doing what it's supposed to do, which is anti-fighter. It can't do it at all. So when you reduce the speeds of combat, it means that the Hammerhead is actually going to be functional, and maybe we can get rid of the stupid auto aim that all of the capital ships have, or turrets in general. make it more skill based. So I mean, there's some we're going to be losing some simulation, but I think we're going to be gaining some functionality for other systems and just combat in general in the game. It's not fun not to be able to see what you're shooting at to some degree because it's a marker on your screen instead of an actual ship. I'm not big into combat, but I have done enough to know that jousting is not a lot of fun. And
Also takes a
unless
while.
everybody is on the same level combat wise, it's always going to devolve into that because people who don't know how to do combat are always going to fly away at high speeds. So
Yeah, I've got my ideas about it, but all I was trying to say is the for me, my personal opinion was the top end speed cap was my issue with it. I agree that they will be able to tweak things in the end, but the other big point that I wanted to bring up was I thought the way that they presented it to us kind of showed, at least my opinion, showed that this is where Chris Roberts is kind of making he's taken a stand in that the mechanics that he's looking at, its concept, its originating position is going to be from Squadron 42 to the PU, and right or wrong, it's his choice to make, but right or wrong, we're going to have to deal with the consequences of that. And the only reason I point this out is because up until this point, the community wasn't sure, like, how the rule sets, how the current change of focus on Squadron 42 instead of the PU was going to have an impact. And all I'm pointing out is now we're starting to get our proof of kind of like where he's coming from. Because to me, he kind of came across as he's now like Squadron 42 is the priority in the sense that if there's going to be problems in the PU, I think he's kind of going, we'll deal with that when we get to it, but right now I got to get this thing out the door. That's all I'm getting at. Done.
So I think last thing I'm saying, and we'll move on to the next CitizenCon related topic, just because we went down this rabbit hole very, very deep. We're way past Wonderland. We're now on Dante's Inferno.
Oh boy, second level?
9th.
Game.
So they did talk about in the need for multiple speeds panel on CitizenCon. They did also talk about ship roles, like gameplay variety for all players, combat's primarily focused due to how ubiquitous it is. They talked about how having aiming to have upsides and downsides for each class. Like light fighters are best suited for 1v1 situations, dogfighting. Heavy fighters excel in number versus number scenarios, so you can actually battle with that. Mediums are multi-role for flexible and use. Racing ships, specific speed. Interceptors aim to disable fleeing ships. Intercept. Cam, you put it best when you said closing the gap, I think.
Yeah.
Explain an interceptor. Bombers are best against large targets, obviously, and larger ships, i.e. the Constellation and above, so that's size 3 ships. I believe that's size 3 and above, are less about dogfighting and more naval-style combat. And also, they're going to have the capital ship turrets made more effective because the ability to orbit them and attack from longer ranges is reduced and makes group attacks much more important. But on to less controversial and more widely accepted praise from CitizenCon. There was the power play panel where they talked about power management, resource management. Right, where you now everything digital representation of real life systems like pipes, tanks, energy, gas, everything will function. Resources, they use interesting opportunities using these resources, including introducing the player to structure building and gameplay, and players taking on that type of roles. They talked about that way back before Orson was implemented, where you have like missions around the platforms to keep out, essentially.
This is your engineer position that we've
Yeah.
all been waiting on for,
decades.
7 years.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, we got power energy resources. So you can overload items for higher performance at cost of wear. You can underload items for for a longer use time. It consists of power, fuel, coolant, heat generation. And that's just the power energy resources. And you get the life support, which is obviously the most important resource. Components regulate temperature and generate oxygen. You have item maintenance. You'll be able to the ability to replace damaged fuses and repair circuits and conduits. Pin control installed sub-items. Relay handling, which defines circuits of the ship, connecting everything together. Access control, so the captain can assign specific roles to a player which allow or restrict access to various systems. So I can go, Cam, you have same access as I do, but Kulios isn't here. So I'm going to give Kulios only access to life support so he can kill us all.
Yeah.
You can do stuff like that.
This goes back to something that I started thinking about, like, I don't know. Whenever we first met, Mando, it's how are they going to do this? Is it going to be per ship? Like, each ship you have to go into the settings and set for each person that you know? Does that person have to be on the ship in order for you to set those settings? Or can you set it up for an org where you've got just a list of people that you know? Or is it going to be that you go into your contacts and you set each contact that you assign them a ship and you assign them what role they're allowed to have in each one of those ships? And how is all that going to be handled?
If I remember that conversation correctly, we were talking about locking your ship because that wasn't a thing then.
Yeah, I wanted to know how we were going to set locks, especially from an org perspective of, the person doesn't own the ship, but he's part of the org. How do I let him into the ship, or how do I give him access to the ship if I'm not on the server?
No, and the same principle applies here. Like, how does that get determined? Do you have to do it each time you enter and spawn the ship, or can you just set it permanently? Okay, Cam, you will always have access unless I change it.
It'll probably be context sensitive. So, like, you'd probably be able to, they of course have said for a while now they want to have more stuff with orgs in game. So I'm assuming I can go and say, and probably the default option will probably be, if you're in my org, you have full access, just like if you're in my party right now. And then they'll probably move it over to where if someone is in my party, maybe they'll go and change over the party system whenever this comes around. But they might make it to where, okay, now this is just using a second tier now of the party system. And so I can just go and say, okay, here's all the people in my party. I can add, so that also means too, just because you're on my ship doesn't mean you get to use anything. So thus, if you have stowaways or trespassers, boarders, they won't be able to start fucking with stuff just because, right now, if someone gets on your ship, they can use anything. So, okay, I've got my party interface. Now I can go and say, hey, they can access engineering, they can access the bridge, they can access, and maybe there'll be different levels or different tiers of stuff based on the ship. Obviously, like a Terrapin isn't going to have a separate bridge access because there is no fucking bridge access. It's a single room. Versus a Carrack or an 890 jump. Hey, yeah, if you're a guest, you shouldn't be able to access the battle bridge, right? So, or if you're a cargo handler on, let's say, a Starfarer, maybe you only have access to crew quarters and the cargo deck. You don't have access to the bridge or maintenance or anything else because you're just there to go and piggyback with the cargo.
But is this ship specific, or are you going to be able to do this from a mobiGlas when you're not even around the ship? Like, do you have to go interact with the ship to create these settings?
Yeah, I would hope it would be in the mobiGlas or somehow off the ship itself. Now, I wouldn't say no to there being some way to access this same thing on like a an engineering station kind of thing. But I would assume that yeah, it would be through the Moby, and you wouldn't have to only do it from the ship itself, just because that's gonna be fucking.
Ideally,
painful.
having it both be on the ship itself and through the Moby, maybe even through Spectrum when that's finally integrated.
I would hope it would be through Spectrum once they go and integrate that back and forth and everything.
And is any of that information going to be hackable?
Probably, given that hacking is going to be a thing, and they do want Grand Theft spaceship to be.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, this is a subject I've been into for years and years and years, and waiting for them to
this is mostly theory crafting.
Sorry, Cam, go ahead.
I'm just noting, this is mostly theory crafting. This isn't CIG said this is how it's going to work. This is, my assumptions on how this will work.
Right. This is just something that keeps call sign up at night. But yeah, so far, all that CIG has said is just talk about how the power management systems themselves are going to work, not how do you determine which player, what specific role, what specific player gets what. Like, they didn't say how that's going to work. They just said how the gameplay of the power management is going to work itself. Like, what does what, how is it going to work?
All I was pointing out is these are the first steps, finally.
Yeah.
These are the baby steps.
Gotta learn to crawl before we can walk. But yeah, so they also think, where are they now? They're working on prototypes of power, gravity, life support, and relays currently. They also said that gravity can be turned off or lowered to save on power or aid traversal in particular situations. I assume light would be affected by this as well. Like, you can just turn off light, because illumination's a waste of power. So, but they said what next is going to be interactable and accessible items on ships, relay gameplay, changing fuses, like all the stuff they listed before, but that's not worked on yet because they're currently working on power, gravity, life support, and relay. Everything else is going to be afterwards, including relay gameplay, changing fuses, resource balancing, defining control groups, so that's later determined, allowing presets, engineering UI with ship schematic, external engineering screens, and fine-tuning. So honestly, this was really great to hear, just like, because we knew this was going to be a thing. They've talked about it, for years. We speculated on it for years. But it's finally good to get some info that, hey, not only is this is how it's going to work, we're working on it. As opposed to just, it's going to be there eventually. They also got the Lorville Redux, the rework of Lorville. They're changing how the city's going to work and look. Not going to look as it does in the game right now. I never had a problem visually how it looked, but navigating that city is so I'm glad that they're reworking it. But Lorville 2.0, it's going to be the Turbulent team's in charge of it. First major landing zone in the game, Lorville. At least the first one that we got. Then it was Levski, right? We got Lorville first, then Levski. Even though they showed Levski in 2016 beforehand, but yeah, I think in game we got Lorville first. Everything built upon the Central Business District. Everything you see in the Central Business District in game right now, that's like the aesthetic that they're going for with the rest of the city. So that's going to be cool. It's going to have a more uniform look. The city they actually showed off is going to actually the new Lorville looks really, really nice. Concept they showed off and everything.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. I think so.
It'll be interesting to see ships actually zipping about in there.
Immersion.
Drink every time you hear that word. I really like this ship. Yeah, it should be interesting when we get it. Because the city's going to be bigger now, too.
Yeah.
They're keeping the gates and stuff, but hopefully navigating the hassle like it currently is.
The main thing that I came away with wasn't. I mean, I'm glad that I'm glad what they showed us and that they're showing it to us. For me personally, it wasn't that exciting, but what I guess made it exciting, thinking about it more, was this is another step again down the road to us getting our like our habitations and our more stores that we can go to, like more neighborhoody feeling immersion of in the game.
Yeah, and also just adds more variety, and hopefully we can see maybe some of those old assets being used at other locations that are a bit less high tech and less prominent, like Lorville.
I want to say most of the outskirts of the current Lorville system are just really ugly terrain blocks.
I was referring to the buildings mainly in the.
Oh, okay,
area,
yeah,
like,
yeah. You're talking about those
because I like
city
those
buildings,
the weird looking buildings there. They look cool. Like I don't want to see them just throw those away. Like use them like an older city. Here's like this city that's been 100 years or something. But yeah, no, those like the outskirts area, all the pipes and everything. Yeah, I'm glad that they're changing that. For starters, the pipes aren't fully rendered. Like it's just ugly because it's one of those areas where you're not supposed to really be there and look at it. So
yeah,
it doesn't look that nice. But they're changing that, so it actually looks.
I kind of like what you guys are saying, though, in the sense that depending on specific regions and the lore around it, and also, you know, I guess it's industrialness. I kind of would like to see maybe some of that old artwork still stay around and have the artist kind of put his new touch on things, but adding to it, just to kind of show that like layered historical effect.
Yeah, like
If
you
that
know,
makes sense.
essentially retexture those old models, pretty much.
Yeah, but not actually like remove physical structures.
Right, like the
build
model
around
itself
it.
is the same, but just with a new texture, it looks better. Type thing.
Right. Well, I guess what I'm trying to get to is I'd like to see them actually do that several times over the long term, and have, so you kind of get that feeling of like a different artist worked on this, and then another one came along later on and did a tweak over here, and then another one did this, and like think of it like kind of like R Corp. Like hopefully R Corp would start to take on personality in certain areas over 10 years of gameplay, because multiple artists and multiple iteration updates have come along, and while it looks like the actual graphics applied to it is up to date, you can still see some of that architecture of previous installation, if that makes sense.
I kind of get what you're saying, like old city versus new city kind of thing.
Right, like a restoration
like,
project on an old building in New York, type thing.
Like Rome, I want you to be able to see the cathedral while still seeing the modern building next to it, kind of a thing. That's all I'm getting at.
Yeah, it'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, just to see like, oh, this place has been here for a while. This isn't like a new location. This is an old location. See that with here's the original buildings. Here's some of the newer buildings.
Yeah.
Recently constructed.
Yeah. Visual representation of that to the players who are wandering around. Yes.
It tells kind of the history of that world just by looking at it. Good point.
And creates flavor.
Yep. Variety is the spice of life and all that. So that's the Lorville stuff. They also did what's face? The planetary pyro thing. There's the road pyro, and they did the design brief investigations talk with Aaron Roberts, Brian Chambers with the investigation missions.
Yeah, I'm glad they're doing it, but to me that topic didn't warrant a whole CitizenCon panel to itself, yeah, that did like, and to me, they didn't really answer anything. Like, they didn't go any deeper than kind of what is already available. So it was kind of a nothing panel to me.
It's essentially like, just to sum up the entire thing. It's, hey, remember that old PI mission from back in 2015 or 16, right? We're going to do more of those, where you're actually looking around for evidence, and the mission ends differently depending on how much evidence you collected and stuff like
that. I do like, though, even if they don't necessarily do it well, and I don't see any reason why they wouldn't do it well, but I still like that they are putting some amount of focus on non-combat, just because so much of the game up until this point has just been revolving around combat in one way or another.
Agreed.
Whether that's pirate, hey, sure, you're a cargo trader, but then pirates attack you when you're in combat. Oh, hey, you're doing box missions, and then pirates come and attack you, whatever. It's always about combat, and it's nice to see some focus being put not on combat just because, I mean, if this is supposed to be a realistic universe, there has to be large pockets of non-combat. As much as some people will scream and pull their hair out hearing me say this, there needs to be pockets of not necessarily forced non-combat, but just of average people, NPCs, and players kind of going about and doing their thing here. It's not going to be the Wild West around every fucking corner here. It's unsustainable.
Especially in more civilized systems, such as a lot of the UE systems, where you're going to be more commercial and more whatever versus in business, versus something like Pyro, or in like Pyro, or all these other systems that are more lawless and combat Old West type of environment.
Uninhabited systems are where you're going to see a lot of that, because especially with things like, for example, the Kraken. You're going to have a lot of pirate orgs based off of one of those, lurking about in the middle of space, hoping to go and lure in a trader or someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, the PI mission has been one of my favorites for years, just because it exactly was what Cam's talking about. Is one of the only missions that was not combat, and when cargo was broken, wasn't cargo, that you could just kind of go, yeah, I'm just going to go do this little investigation mission, and
it's
boom,
it's one of my favorite missions, also because there's a story there. In most missions, there's not really a story. Yeah, there's some environmental storytelling here and there, but there's no story. There's no voice acting, there's no characters. I'm not saying every mission needs that, but having more missions that do have that is definitely a plus, and that's what they want here. They want to have that narrative to the mission, stuff like that. Getting some more either lore or just some story and characters in there is always great. Even if you never see the characters, it's just a voice on a phone or a voice on a holotape.
What I'm hoping is that they don't attach. They how do I put this? I'm hoping that the PI missions that they come up with have a generic inherent dangerous to them, in the sense of you never know what you're going to encounter. That's okay, but what I don't want them to do is actually assign. No, I'm not saying that correctly. You should know when taking the mission whether or not it's going to lead into a PvP, PvE scenario. Not in a sense of like, exactly. Like,
well,
hey,
sure, someone might stumble upon your box mission with a hammerhead and decide to blow you out of the water, but that wasn't intended with the mission. That was just a, hey, sorry, shit happens. But if it's purposefully leading you into a, hey, this is a hot, you're going into Security Post Korea, and you're going after Sir Gangrene the Jubulous, okay, this is pretty obviously a fucking player here. I need to expect that I'm going up against a player.
It's that type of thing. Or even with the PI mission, like, you, for all you know, there could be a player hiding in there or something, but at the end of the day, you're going into this mission not like, you should be ready for combat, or maybe you shouldn't be going in there. Oh, I know there's going to be combat, or I'm expecting combat. It's no, it's a diverse is a dangerous place and all that. You should be ready for something.
Well, I mean, to be fair though, they already do this very lightly, just in the bounty hunter missions. When you go and look at the flavor text that you get for player bounties, it notes, hey, these are high risk bounties, just be aware these are tougher than your normal NPC bounty because these are players. Players are fucking psycho little shits here. So, an NPC probably isn't going to go and decide to get up right next to you and set off their self-destruct just because fuck you, that's why. A player very well might.
What I really want to see from the mission system is kind of a better mix. Like right now, if you select a mission, that mission is taken off the board. I want missions where you can have multiple people accepting the mission, and then you're in competition with them to get it done.
That used to be the case with a lot of
you either have to do it faster or through combat, or a better form to pull people together so they're in the same space competing to do the same sort of thing.
Decide to work together on do it together.
Or it
can lead to either or
to accomplish a goal.
Like medical. Right now, if someone goes down, they put out a medical beacon. Someone goes and accidentally accepts that. Whoops, sorry, and you're sitting there going, "Hey, I'm down. I'm still down. Are you there?" 30 minutes later, that guy went and logged off. He was just getting ready to quit for the day, and he accidentally accepted that, and you're just SOL. If okay, maybe I know I could still access the chat and beg someone to come save me, etc. But you don't know that this is how that's going to work.
Sounds like Data Machine wants to do racing everywhere.
Another thing is like the original investigation missions where you'd go down to like a constellation wreck or something to find the flight recorder. Those, multiple people can accept them, and I've had multiple times in the past, back in like the 3.2 days, where I'd go to Daymar, investigate a constellation, and then like two other guys showed up, and then I put my gun like, hey, are you guys friendly? Like, yeah, all right, you guys want to do the mission together? It's like, yeah, and then we just teamed up, like, yeah, and you can have an alternate version where it's like, hey, these other guys are here to take my paycheck. I can just shoot them and then take their loot, finish the mission and get a bigger reward. You're a dick, but you get a bigger reward.
I just want to see the variety in the sense that like there's no guarantee. The only reason I say that is I don't want to see players farming those missions with the intent of like, hey, let's get together as a gang and take over these missions and just wipe out everybody else.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So by having it be unknown in its variety, you never know, what the players are. You never know, is this a mission where I'm actually going to encounter that? Or is this the mission where I don't even draw my weapon? Like, not knowing that actually makes a good gameplay from my personal opinion.
Also, having a lot of those types of missions at a time would be
I think an easy way to separate it would be have the very first tier missions be PvE only, and then as you rank up doing those missions, then they can state clearly that there will be other people that are competing with you to get these kinds of missions done. So that way you know that there's the potential that you could run into somebody, but it's not a guarantee. So you just got to keep your guard up and pay attention.
I have nothing against the PvE, PvP, all that stuff. Like, that's okay. You don't need to warn me about that. All I'm saying is I don't want every single mission to be that. Right? All I'm saying is create missions where some of them are PvE, some of them are going to be PvP, or are set up to create, to increase the chances of that PvE, but don't make every mission require it. So therefore, you never know when you're going into the mission, unless it's a specific mission like, hey, I want you to go break into this house with all these really well-armed guards there, That's the warning, if that makes sense. You know, that I should expect confrontation, but don't make it where every single mission is I'm going to have to go break in against some well-armed guards. If that, I know I'm not making sense here. I just want variety.
I think I understand what you're trying to say.
Like it's PI, it's private investigators. Give me the variety of types of private investigation that you could expect to see, you know, based off of, you know, think old school, like private movies, you know, where the private investigator, you know, there's abductions, there's, you got to find the old lover from, you know, from God knows where, or, you know, there's the blackmail, or there's the cheating, you know, mistress, housewife, whatever. Like
The Saber's Kiss.
just different types of missions that you never know exactly, you know, that are not geared towards, we need to find a way to make it so that this guy is in combat at least once in every mission. That's all I'm getting at.
Here's another thing, actually.
I get that.
On the topic of
one thing that I loved about their presentation, sorry, Mando, I didn't mean to cut you off there, was the fact that they said they're not going to lead you around by the hand all the time.
Yeah.
There's some clues that they're going to put out there, and then it's up to you to recognize that that is a clue, and then to know how to use the tools that are available in the game to extract information from that clue to know whether you want to go to the next area or just say, this is where I'm going to stop.
What'd be really interesting,
like
too...
the current go ahead.
Sorry, you go.
Just one of the things that I always liked about the current PI mission is, and hopefully I'm not spoilering it for people, but there's 2 parts to that mission. And if you finish the first part and you cash in, you get a certain amount of money. But if you dig a little bit deeper, you find some more evidence and you get almost a double payout of it. And I've always really liked that, because that's one of that's the only mission that's like that in the current PU system. And I've been dying for them to do more of that kind of stuff, which I think is what Dad was just talking about. And I totally agree. Like, I want that, you know, the more effort and time you put into it, the more potential chance you have of, you know, finding that hidden clue that actually makes a difference. I'm all for that.
Investigation missions also have definitely have a variety advantage to other missions. It's similar to maintenance style missions. They can be at the landing zones. You technically never have to leave wherever city you're at in order to do one. Like, they could have PI missions where, okay, we need you to investigate something on the platform of Orison or something like that. Like, you don't have to leave. It can just be a local mission.
Somebody's stealing cargo.
Yeah, and you head to the Providence platform, and you have to look at something. You can even maybe have some NPCs that have dialogue. You know, ask them questions, and they'll give you kind of either yes or no type responses, depending on what you ask.
Plushies at the landing zone.
You can have something as simple as, I think my wife's cheating on me. I need you to find proof, like the most cliche PI mission ever, and then go and you have to look for that. But it's like that style of, you don't have to even leave the landing zone of mission.
Yeah. I'd also like to see I'd like to see a market side to it as well, in the sense that maybe after you've established a reputation as a PI by doing a certain number or attaining a certain level of mission, but start going in maybe into like bigger economic issues where you're like, maybe in the long term, and I don't know, like, I'm talking, this is point A to point Z, but maybe point Z is you're investigating the Hurston family financials and, getting involved in politics of the PU in what your findings are, and maybe those will have a result in public elections or something like that. Like, I am totally theory crafting here. I'm just saying it doesn't have to go to that level, but along that thought pattern of like you become more and more involved in your
Yeah, the
investigations.
more missions you do successfully, the better your rep, and then more people start hiring you for different things, and the jobs get bigger. Like, now you went from literally having to figure out if some guy's wife is cheating on him to now you're taking on, even if it's not like something major like Hurston, but some you're dealing with an economic investigation or some companies doing insurance fraud or something like that.
Yeah, something big. But yeah, there's a lot of directions they could go, and you're absolutely right. Like, there are so many directions they can go, and they can do it anywhere, and it doesn't require travel or combat to be a successful entry, way of making money. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it can really be like your entry level mission. Like you're on a plot, you start your game at ArcCorp, and you have a PI mission to find proof that there's some drug thing going on. Like maybe not the starting mission involves drugs and stuff, but this could be like a mission at ArcCorp where you have to go to one of the back alleys and meet some guy, or I don't know. There's so many things that they can do with the PI style missions at just landing zones, let alone the entire universe of the game.
Yeah.
Find out why the DMV won't issue you a pilot's license.
That's the first mission.
Well, that's how you get introduced to getting a license and how to fly, and by going through the investigation, you don't realize that you're actually learning.
No, I feel like that should be more or less a tutorial, maybe not tutorial, but like that should be separate from PI missions. But yeah,
I was just joking, Mando.
They also did the whole Pyro tour. That was probably, I want to say prior to CitizenCon, that was like the biggest thing prior to, but now that CitizenCon's out, obviously I think the Underground was had the most meat on it in regards to what they showed, but Pyro had some meat on it too. They showed off each of the different planets and locations. The Pyro 1, they said it gets hit by solar flares repeatedly, so causing glowing marks and streaking all over the planet. Volumetric clouds are enabled there. They're reusing blue crystal assets from Walla on Pyro 1. A need to add something memorable to each planet, in this case spiky rocks. Has a variety of massive, unique rock formations. Pyro 2, they try to make each planet look unique and stand out. So this way you go there and you have a memory of it, and it's stamped on your brain as, oh, that planet. And they talked about, I think, one of Pyro's moons. Yeah, I mean, none of these videos were that, on their own, are that long. Like, the Pyro video itself is about 29 minutes. And that's one of the longer ones. I say one of. The longest one is like 2 hours. That's the panel with Chris Roberts and Tyler.
I enjoyed the footage that they showed us, but I also felt like, to me, it felt like after last year's CitizenCon and the Pyro tour that we were given then, I was kind of like, you could be showing me the same footage from that show and I wouldn't know the difference. Like, what they showed us this year wasn't a massive improvement enough to jump out at me and go, wow, I'm really glad they showed us that. Like, I feel like I saw something new. It just felt kind of like,
I have to disagree just because the footage I have going on in the background right now shows this character walking on the ground. And the ground itself, at least texture-wise to me, looks a lot better than some of the textures on the moon right now. Now, granted, this could just be my graphics card showing its age.
Could this footage have been in last year's CitizenCon?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
When they gave us that tour. That's all I'm getting at. Like, the footage, what they showed here looked like it could have come from last year. It wasn't big enough to go, oh, wow, there's a big change. Like, they've done something. This is something totally new. That's all I was getting at.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it doesn't look good. It does look good. And that's what I meant by, like, I liked what I saw, but nothing looked new to me. That's all I'm getting.
Yeah. The big takeaway
One thing
for
that
me,
I'm a little bit disappointed we didn't see was their ideas for how the not quantum jumping, but what do they call it? The wormhole jumping is.
Yeah, jump points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah.
We didn't see
did
anything
not
on that
discuss
this year.
at all.
We didn't see it last year either, if I remember correctly. So
True.
last time we saw anything about it was 2019.
Yeah, I think what's the latest conjecture is that we're not going to see anything about it until the next God.
Like pretty much right before 4.0 comes out, essentially.
No, what's the show each
IAE.
year that's got the yeah, I think it's the IE where the in-game guy took the ship and jumped over to the
Oh
pirate
yeah,
system.
their version of Top Gear.
Yeah,
Jax McCleary.
Jax McCleary.
Jax McCleary.
So supposedly we're not going to see it. The rumor, I have absolutely nothing to pin this down on, but the rumor is we won't see anything about jump points until that next episode. But who knows?
Yeah.
Data,
But
maybe
I would have
they'll
liked
change
to
it
have seen
from
something.
looking like a Stargate. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Cross all your appendages, like a Stargate again.
Yeah. Well, I hope it doesn't look like the inside of somebody's colon while we're flying through it. Is the
it
big
really
thing.
does, doesn't it?
I would be perfectly okay with them just going, hey, you know what? You jumped, and here you are at the other end, and you're flying out of it.
What if it's not a tunnel effect? Well, honestly, I like it. It's sad that I like the star map on the website, the way they do jump points. I like that effect better than they do in CitizenCon demo they had in 2019. Now, granted, color could be a big aspect there. Like, if they just changed all the colors used in that CitizenCon demo, maybe things would have looked completely different. Because like the colors they used did not look good. But, and I'm not talking about
that was just an early test, right?
But, yeah, it was an early test.
Be too critical about it, but
here's the question that I have: we're look at the current system build of that we have, and the griefing that we have now, and the complaining we have about griefing. Tell me that creating wormholes that we have to fly through, and some people are flying, whole seas with multi-billions of dollars involved, loaded on them, is a good idea with some kid with a Gladius who feels like he doesn't care and he's going to ram that thing.
What could possibly go wrong?
I'm telling you right now, it's a good idea. Just because you told you to say it's a good idea.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it is it's like having it's one highway that goes both ways. It's gonna be a mess, and that's probably why we haven't seen anything of it, because they're, at least I hope, they're dealing with the logistics of that. But
yeah, I would be okay. That's why I was saying I'd be okay with them just going, you know what? There is no tunnel. There is no highway. You essentially go in at point A, you show up at point B, and whatever kind of fun you guys want to create, it can either be created at point A or at point B, but not in between those two states, because we just need traffic to keep going. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and they can do that by here when you go in through the warp gate, the jump point, this cool compressed light effect maybe, or, actually it looks like you're moving faster than light. But I don't know, it's honestly we can speculate all day on how they can do it, but the original idea. Sorry. You go.
Nope, it's your show.
Our show, comrades. No,
the
original idea for the jump points that they have is they want you to fly manually throughout the tunnel, and they're going to have the tunnel be a certain shape or whatever, or maybe do loop-de-loops or something, but you're flying through it. You actually have to navigate, and if you go through the wall of the wormhole, you're now in deep space, kind of stranded and Left 4 Dead. Which is a cool idea, but I don't know, it needs more time on concept, I feel.
Well, to me, it's kind of one of it's that same thing that we were talking about earlier, and I'm not saying this to rehash that, but this is, it sounds really cool for a first-person shooter, or a first-person game, but in an MMO, it's just it has the potential to be a disaster.
Yeah.
Because it's a choke point, I would love to see everyone behave and have a great experience and be able to fly any way they want to through the wormhole. But when you start getting involved with the size of ships and moving, fleets, player fleets through these things, like there's just so much potential of bad actors simply for the sake of being bad actors and not for gameplay, that I'm perfectly okay with, like an ATC autopilot that just takes control of the ship as soon as it enters the wormhole, and the player has no input until he gets to the other end, and he can assemble his fleet on the other side, but not blockade it in the middle by parking his Idris there.
It's an Idris. I'm kidding.
Thanks, Cam. Thanks. My English not so good, but that's just my take on it. Go ahead.
No, we haven't heard. I don't think we're gonna be hearing from jump points in a while. Hopefully, when we do hear about it, they fixed all these issues. If not, then we're gonna be in for an interesting time.
Yeah. Well, along the same lines, one thing that I've noticed they've gone totally silent about is all that work that was going to be done on the Aaron Halo belt, which we're supposed to be getting these like lanes of travel through them, and you're supposed to have like checkpoints at each side. Like,
because
they're going to be creating
field was
tunnels.
so dense, you can't quantum travel through it. You have to get through these.
Yeah, which I think, again, along the same lines, I thought was a really bad idea because of that choke point thing. But it's been several years and we still haven't heard anything. Or
they did say there's going to be multiple
idea
of them. Points. Whereas with the jump point, there's only one.
Right,
That's
but
what
how many? Sorry.
No, never mind.
I mean, how many can you have? Anyways, we won't. We argued that a long time ago. I won't bring it back up.
Something worth noting from the underground part, by the way, the underground facilities, was they did split up into zones. Like Zone 1 will show medium-sized bunkers with landing pads and hangars for executive security forces. Additional detailed structures such as processing plants, tanks, catwalks, etc. They're going to be adding in multiple entry routes, pads at the top, hangars in the middle, surface entrance at the bottom. Adding a lobby for corporate presence. And Zone 2 is going to be inside. Inside of Zone 2 will contain a transit system, elevators, and door trams, Black Mesa style. Example is control room with massive cargo elevator for logistics and transport. Zone 3 would have the previously unexplored areas such as residential or heavy industry, nooks and crannies dedicated towards logistics, always keeping in mind different ways for players to traverse the area, not just through doors, but up and down ramps and elevators. Going back to the whole parkour thing earlier. Cargo elevators with puzzle-like routes, showing example corridor and stuff like that. They actually want to have them be more than just what they are now. That's good. Thought it'd be worth mentioning what they had in mind. We did also have the moving away from CitizenCon, though. We did have the studio report for both Star Citizen and Squadron for September. For AI content, they worked on more vendor and patron behaviors. 2 important new usables: opening crates and inspecting the contents, and then lifting items in and out of the crates. For the AI, and first version of a simulated bed sheet was presented.
Oh boy.
The bed sheets always make
Yeah.
me laugh a little bit.
You have the AI features team continue to develop the traits that allow specialization of NPCs in levels and scenarios. This is identical for the Squadron and Star Citizen one. This is the Squadron one specifically. They implemented usables that allow context-specific search animations to be played, implemented several new features for combat with the Van Duel, and work continued on stealth gameplay loop to allow the player to wear specific clothing, disguise themselves in different environments. And just to add on for the Star Citizen report there, because same thing except minus the Van Duel, they did also talk about different AI traits for combat, such as like the Sentry, Reckless, and Aggressive. Like the Sentry, like this will determine how they act in combat. Like, are they going to take cover more? Are they going to bum rush you? Are they going to be just idiots, essentially? Are they going to, and it'll help determine which of these traits that they're going to use for different situations, dynamics like that. And that was pretty cool.
Can I jump in here?
Sure.
Well, I mean, you'd asked me if I was going to say something about the AI, I guess.
I did.
Prior to the show, and this wasn't actually a major issue of mine, but because you had asked that, I kind of paid attention to that. And one of the things that I noticed is that in the community, in the player community, there seems to be a general question of kind of what level of AI is going to get to. And a lot of the big contention one seems to be whether or not AI should be as good or better than players. And it seems that a lot of a certain crowd, I guess is the best way to put it, says no. And that crowd tends to be the PvP players. I personally think that it should be allowed, but there should be context to it. So what I mean by that is that I think an AI should be allowed to develop. So a better way of saying this, no, the AI should not automatically just be Superman and have Superman skills, as soon as the character is created. But if that character survives in the PU repeatedly over and over again over time and does certain skill sets or skill series or abilities checks, however you want to call it, I don't want to argue about that, but, skills. But in other words, does a certain repetition a number of times and gains bonuses, I think that AI should be able to develop into a, I'm using a certain term here, but pick your own, a veteran AI character. And along with that, he should be able to have skills on par or maybe even a little better, depending on how long it's been and how many times he's done it, better than a player. And maybe it takes several players to take that guy down if he's been able to develop that far along the tree. I think that should be acceptable. But that's just my take. And I also think along with that, as that AI develops those skill sets, I also think that when players encounter that AI should also kind of have some tweaks to the personality set, in the sense that maybe it reaches a certain level and you've got a newbie player, who runs across him and is just being obnoxious and, like, oh, I'm a player, I'm going to shoot you down. Like, I'm going to win no matter what. And the guy's, the AI's like, does a check, a skill level check, behind the scenes. And it's like, oh, I'm like 25 levels above, anything that this player character has done. So maybe he does a non-lethal takedown, and it just walks away going, yeah, whatever, punk, kind of an attitude. And the player's left, with a learning experience, and the AI doesn't just immediately go to SEAL Team 6 level and kill everything around him, kind of a thing, is what I'm getting at. That's my take. I would be okay with that. But like I said, I also don't want an AI just create it instantaneously at level 100 and kills whole teams of players, if that makes sense.
Well, I should know. I would be okay with one. Well, I definitely like how you're going and kind of building that out. The one exception I would say would be the UEE military. Like the UEE military, if you as a player are deciding to go up against them, they shouldn't all be starting as
0 level, but
newbies.
level 25. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm with you.
but like I definitely like, because I mean I do like that idea you kind of laid out of, sure, NPCs might start off as newbies just like we as players do, but at the same point, that's no reason that those NPCs could then be forever held at that level and not grow as we as players grow. So it's like
Yeah.
you would have, if a new player does come along and they start going around like, oh, I'm a player, I can kick everything's ass because I'm a player. It's like, no, but as you noted, hey, maybe that NPC can do a check and go, oh, okay, this is a relatively new player here, and instead of outright just killing them, they just go and knock them out, disable their ship, whatever, and kind of go, hey, you're a fucking idiot, and just kind of leave them there to stew for a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm also okay with it being kind of role specific. So, absolutely, you go up against, the Dread Pirate Roberts version. He's probably will kill even a new player because that's like he's an outlaw. That's what he does.
Well,
but
he is a veteran character. Just because you weren't around when he was going around in terms of the game world doesn't mean that he didn't exist in how this is being built out.
Yeah, you're right. What I was more pointing towards is not necessarily, I just picked that name out of the hat as like a high level, but I didn't actually mean him. I just meant like you're dealing with a criminal, a veteran criminal, then it doesn't matter if you're a low level player or not. I expect him to actually conduct himself as a criminal, right? Whereas if that same AI is a advocacy agent or one of the UEE, master sergeant, that's where he goes, yeah, I'm just going to use non-lethal and knock this kid out, and walk away. That's all I'm getting at is I'm okay. I don't want that rule of non-lethal to be a overriding rule of what that overall character is meant to be. That's all I was getting at.
Yeah, you want the trait of the AI to reflect what the AI is. Are they a criminal AI? Are they soldier?
Yeah.
Are they and that you want that to play accordingly. Otherwise, it's just they're all going to kill you no matter what, or they're all going to non-lethally take you down no matter what. Will get annoying and boring.
And the players then start to expect that behavior as well, Whereas if you don't know how he's going to behave.
Well, actually, no. It would be even better if there's variety, because if I'm dealing with criminals, I know they're going to try and take me out. If I'm dealing with E or some other organization, and I'm not yet a criminal where they're going to treat me hostile because of
that's
stance.
what I'm talking about. Like, I don't want the criminal to only use non-lethal because he's at level 50 and you're at level 10.
Yeah.
I want you to still be worried if you're at level 10 that, fuck, that guy's a criminal. He may actually still kill me. Like, not engaged going, oh, I know if he's above my level, I only get a non-lethal takedown no matter who they are. I don't want that. Anywho.
Yep. The AI vehicles, the vehicle team, for Squadron at least, vehicle AI and vehicle features work together on AI targeting things other than vehicles. Also worked on system AI for Chapter 1, which involves a large number of AI attacking capital ships in coordinated waves. Star Citizen-wise, AI vehicles will now targeting extended to turrets, components, and stations. So, yeah. Animation team worked on some obviously new mocap stuff as usual. They worked on ladder locomotion for both players and AI. Continued work on EVA and zero-G movement. Gadgets such as deployable shields and Galson weapons were further developed. Development on the female Spec Ops continued. Squadron. Mocap for marketing and events done in Star Citizen side of things, and work on facial animations for rescue transport gameplay. Then the gameplay feature team for Squadron, the team continued with tasks for the armory, added additional functionality for the designers, and such as snapping and locking. Hobie Glass saw the team finishing the personal message app and implementing the first part of the mission manager. Gameplay story side held a mocap shoot that captured a variety of data for several late scenes. A new scene was created that will allow the player to speak to a medic and be healed by them. And exploration was done on the mess hall scenes, function with the AI animation. I like that medic part though, because that means that this means that we don't have to rely on other players.
Well, I mean, just.
But granted, that's for Squadron
bunker missions.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just solely like if they implement that for the bunker missions, holy shit, man, that'd be lovely.
Graphics and VFX programming for Squadron completed edge highlighting rendering code for the FPS scans and included objects. New rendered a texture layer for augmented reality rendering for all AR in-world UI rendering moving forward. AR rendering shader upgraded supporting tessellation and smoothing, tri-planar texture mapping, and dynamic multi-scale texturing. Investigated D3D and Vulkan's anti-aliased line rendering for rendering wireframes on UI meshes at request of design. Just more implementation and optimization. Level design team for Squadron did a flight team hit. The flight team hit major milestones and pushed towards full and seamless playability past first third of the game. Social team worked on implementation, feedback, and NPC behavior handshakes in multiple chapters. Social began shift assignments for Idris's 80-person crew, including deck crew, bridge crew, engineers, and off-duty personnel. Social also kicked off cross-discipline chapters task involving FPS, flight, and social related designs. Level design progressed in social-related content. Majority of assigned scenes now ready for implementation. A lot of stuff in level design. They prepped for the Ad 1 performance capture. Worked with design on streamlined version of FPS wildline set, giving enemies enough lines to be active without complicating workload. They continued with the AI team on dynamic conversation system for background characters. Focus is on keeping the line set manageable while keeping interactions fresh. Ongoing level dev review with flight and FPS design teams, adjusting scripts to explain gameplay and fill. Tech animation team for Squadron did initial face scans, added 20 female heads. They will add these new assets as soon as art finishes processing, find geometry cache foundations within Maya. They assisted multi-team effort to create and do enemy types. Squadron 42 UI updates are major progress made on star map and radar systems. Tech added for creation of interaction with radar hollow volumes, visual glitches patched along the way, and art team still reworking parts of Squadron 42 specific UI, including vehicle style guide. And then the VFX team did they onboarded newbies, provided environmental effects and construction sequences for the art, design, and cinematics teams, and began slight overhaul of particle libraries for ease of maintenance as they proliferate. Now, Star Citizen's character art team, they prepped new armors, subscriber program work, and progressed the Earth Fashion Frontier outfits, medical armor, and creatures. The ship team for Star Citizen got the Drake Corsairs in final art phase, the Drake Vulture support pass, Argo SRV mostly done in gray box, final art pass on unannounced ship for review this month, unannounced vehicle passed final review, which I presume at this point was the STV because it came up after and before CitizenCon, the monthly report.
Not to have assumptions.
Yep, makes an ass out of you, me. Pulsey Polish Pass. Resource management on Hammerhead work continued. Gravity generator room added. Work completed on upcoming variants. Community side of things, Battle of the Bricks comlink, top 8 free fly and referral bonus of the ship showdown stuff because that was all in September. Pirate Week and Entails screenshot contests, prep for digital CitizenCon, all that stuff was in September. Engine team, refactored RWI verification, level export code update, Gen 12 transition work, various editor tools now run with Gen 12. Transient graphics passes and updates. Gen 12 now supports texture, anisotropy, overrides, and global MIP bias. A lot of good stuff, and I don't know where you got the possible rope from, Callsign, when you were talking about this a few weeks ago. But hold on a second. At least it's not in the engine side of things.
What? Sorry. What were you asking me?
A few weeks ago, you mentioned something about ropes in the monthly report.
Blah blah blah. First, I believe I linked it, and it's the first paragraph under engine, and it talks about ropes. Are you not seeing it? Are you there?
I'm looking. Oh.
Okay, so
We lost data.
you see the paragraph titled engines? It's right under the sitcon picture from China.
Yep.
Or
Okay.
Our Citizen. First, it's the last couple sentences. It's hard to know whether or not what they were saying is a typo. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I see it now. Moreover, changes were done on the level export code to enable the reliable attachment of roped to other entities on the client.
And I mean, that could be something unrelated, but it could be rebelling. Panic.
What I was trying to point out is that if you really read that sentence, it's hard to tell whether or not they're using it as a technical term that doesn't have anything to do with physical rappelling ropes, or if there's a misspell in there and the wrong word is meant to actually imply talking about ropes. I personally think it doesn't, just because the final sentence says reliable attachment of roped to rope, and that's the word that I think is wrong, to other entities on the client. So I think this is like background, like connections, and not physical ropes. But I also don't know enough about code talk to know. That's why I pointed it out, so that you guys can make up your own decision.
It doesn't. I don't think it's about ropes. It seems like they're using it in the technical sense that it's ropes tied to other entities. Not.
Well, that's my thinking as well.
We won't know until we actually see something in game.
Repelling when? Give us repelling CIG.
Well, also too, not just things like, for example, repelling, like person going down a cliffside or something, but also too, when, like right now, for vehicle physics are all kinds of fucky-wucky sometimes. If you go and flip over a ground vehicle, it'll try to automatically flip itself back over. If that's not always going to be the case here, you might have to end up towing a smaller vehicle out through something, whether you have a ship tractor beam or something else.
Well, the community itself is saying right now that that latest buggy that they just sold, its damage mechanic is to lose a wheel. Like, that's, once that wheel is gone, there's nothing you can do to replace it. So To me, that's like,
but
you need
that
a
would
rope.
mean that you'd have to go and fucking tow that thing.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that they need rope for. So give us rope.
Hopefully we will get it.
The character and weapons features team did FPS device work for timers, proximity triggers, and actor status effects. And they began prototyping restraints for wrists and ankles.
Oh boy.
So we can hog tie people. Another thing we need rope for, okay?
I'm trying to remember when or how it was brought up, but Astropub is going on record as basically saying he thinks that bounty hunting long term, not right now, but long term, bounty hunting is going to be about bringing in your captive alive.
Duh.
Versus dead or alive.
Yeah.
Just because of the way the mechanics will be if players going around constantly killing their captives and how the after effects of that get handled. So you'll probably see something along the lines of like, and this is just theory crafting, but essentially like you'll be paid a certain amount to bring this person in, but if you bring them in alive, then it's like double or triple that amount just to incentivize it,
think that makes
kind of
sense.
a thing.
Or they can do where it's like the lower tier. The lower tier targets can be dead or alive, and then the higher tier targets are you have to bring them alive.
To me, that's just a given. I mean, why would they make ships with all these
Yeah, right. That's why I said
cells
duh.
in them that you put people in if they didn't intend for you to bring people in alive as the ideal outcome.
This way the dead body doesn't stink up the place. I don't know.
That too.
But they
I
did
think
talk
it's more
about
interesting gameplay to try to bring in a target alive because you'd have to take it in more consideration than just blowing them up or shooting.
Especially since the features team does make a point to state, of course, another player or NPC may come along and remove the restraints, but it is a small risk for those who want to avoid using lethal action.
But where's my medical body parts gameplay? I want to farm.
The gameplay features team did salvage tier 0 support and release. They did the QOL quality of life plans for mining and loot generation after 3.18. They're looking into multi-crew mining benefits, resource network work for temperatures and coolers, and cargo refactor work. Features. All that was worked on in September. The mission features team did the Korea work for all the stuff going into Security Post Korea in 3.18. They did some testing on the lessening of crime stat 1 and 2 severity. They also saw progress on investigation mission mentioned in last month's report. Make a point to state, we feel we are ready to let narrative go wild with creating mysteries aboard a variety of ships and surrounding environments for the missions. They also contract manager UI redesign in progress. They're also testing a potential combat logging prevention. So you can't just combat log. Vehicle feature team did some persistent entity streaming support, transit system refactor, improving old systems like tiles and aiming / gunnery, and MFD system rework. That's really graphics and VFX programming and Planet Tech did FPS scanning work. That's in progress now. That's good. In-game augmented reality shader and rendering added. Same stuff as Quadrant 42, pretty much. The only difference here is they improved River Tech for 3.18 and Gen 12 rendering of planets ready for 3.18. Lighting team worked on Pyro's Ruin Station work. They did a pass on Korea because they're reworking the interior. and they worked on footage for upcoming event, which I presume is Invictus, not Invictus, IAE. That's in November. Locations team worked on Pyro, Korea, and what the hell? Hi, we're here to call about your car's extended warranty.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're also working on upcoming event space for older landing zone. Whatever that means. Who knows? Maybe they're like revamping Levski back eventually. Obviously, they have to get Pyro in first in order to get. But
not for Crusader. We know it's not coming until we get Nix.
No, I said that's why to get Pyro in first, because then they have to get the Nix system. Levski.
Yeah.
And we're not getting any of that till Pez.
We're not getting it until next year, Pyro. If
at least.
At least.
Yeah.
If we get it next year. We're not getting it this year. Be lucky if we get 318 this year.
I've been hearing people say we're not getting 4.0 for 2 years.
I don't know if I believe 2 years.
I don't know about 2 years.
I don't know either, but I'm just pointing out, like, that's what's going on around in the community. Like, that's how crazy speculation has gotten to. That's the level. Not saying I agree with it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Narrative team finished.
I love the speculators.
Yes. Speculators. That's a good name for a band, right?
Yeah, it is.
The Speculator.
Good
Narrative
name for an org.
Yeah. Who are you guys? We're the Speculators. I think.
We do mining and stock trades.
Yeah.
Yes. So mining and trading. Narrative team finished touches for IAE 2952, which is November. I heard someone say November 19th. But we never got a date. I don't know where that person got the date from. I mean, it's usually around late November, so.
It's usually November 24th is when we get our next patch.
Well, no, that's when IAE comes out. But it's around like November 20th, like that. No,
it's usually Thanksgiving Eve is when it drops.
Yeah, but isn't Thanksgiving just the last Thursday of the month? It's not like tied to a date.
I thought it was like the 24th usually.
It's always on a Thursday, I believe.
Yeah, it's like the last Thursday or second to last Thursday of the month or something like that.
I think it's second to last.
Well, what does the internet have to say?
It doesn't matter. All I'm pointing out is it'll be
IAE is usually that time,
that they drop it.
Because that's when Black Friday is. That's when they have the giant sale for intergalactic aerospace, like all that. So, they also did mission work for 318. Terminals and kiosks have been updated for contract manager improvements planned, not worked on, planned. And work on publishes like Star Watch, Booty Call, Cousin Crow's portfolio, Galactopedia posts, and Star Citizen live questions.
Did you just say Booty Call?
Anywho.
On track. Because I got about a half hour more before I got to bail.
So all the stuff is, more work on Pyro, more work on Ruin Station, more work on marketing assets for players and persistent entities, 318 deliverables. It's all prep work for 318 Evocati, which 318 is now in Evocati, by the way. That happened last week, 2 weeks ago. They're currently just testing persistent entity streaming in Evocati. It's not like, they got all the features. No, they're just testing tests right now. Also,
one step at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Alpha 3.17.3 just went live a few weeks ago as well, earlier in October, along with the whole Day of the Vera, Halloween, 2952 helmet hunt, I guess you can call it, where you have to find the 3 different helmets. There's the Horror Hill helmet, Horror Hill Reborn, which is just a green version of the Horror Hill helmet, and the Snarling Vandal mask. And if you find all 3 of these in game, like you go around to the various mining stations and outposts on planetary surfaces, like the Shubin mining stations or Arcourt mining stations, or the Necropolis on Microtech. You go to these locations, and most people will say it's in the red box, but you just check all the boxes there anyways. And you'll find the helmets, those crates, and if you loot it, it'll be tied to your account permanently, because 318 is going to do a database wipe. So if you loot the stuff, you'll get it tied to your account. This way, 318 just went live, but I still have all these cool helmets. And plus, it asks as a way for. Yeah.
Sorry, man. How'd your hunting go today? Did you find?
I did it last night, and it took me 2 hours to find all 3.
Okay. Yeah.
Why did they go with green?
Well,
Isn't that
the base
like
version.
the St. Patty's Day color?
No, it's not. The helmet itself isn't green. All the accent lights are.
Okay.
It's still like a blackish, brownish helmet.
That's what they want you to think.
Can they go with like pumpkin orange or something? Pumpkin
I
spice
don't
colored
know.
lights?
The default version
the original
has
one has orangey.
has
red
like
lights.
orangish accent lights. It's essentially like a scarecrow, like Batman scarecrow mask, but it's a helmet for Star Citizen, and it has accent lights. The base version has red and orange lights. The reborn variant has green light, and that's the new one. But it's cool because if you missed out or weren't Star Citizen then, or you just failed the challenge back in 2019 when the Horror Hill and Vandal masks came out, this is your second chance to get them. Pretty cool.
And the Vandal mask is fun to have.
It is.
Just have fun with.
Cam was there when I found it, and like, I must go. My people need me. Yeah, that's pretty cool with the Halloween stuff. And all you need to do is, within the month of October, find all 3 of these masks in loot crates, and that's it.
If you find any one of them and loot it, no, what Sage have clarified, you have to be the one to loot them out. So if someone's offering like, I'll sell you mine or any of that shit, it won't work. But if you go and you loot it from a container, then when the wipe happens, you will get a permanent version of it. So, yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, and it's as long as it's still October, which obviously it's October 24th as of recording this, so you have a few days, you can still do it. And I did it all in just 2 hours last night, so.
To be fair, though, you got lucky.
I did.
Punk.
It also helps that I did the research in where do I find these, what's the most likely place that it's going to pop up and everything like that.
For those who haven't done the research, the places you want to look is research outposts and mining outposts, specifically outposts. If you're trying to look on derelict ships, if you're trying to look in underground facilities, they've specifically said they will not spawn there.
Like, I found both Horror Hill helmets at the Necropolis on Microtech. Not at the same time. I went there, landed my ship, went into the outpost, found one of them, then went back into the ship, logged out, went to a new server, and found another one. That trick did not work. I had to do that trick 3 more times, and it didn't work again, like, to find the Vandal mask, that is. But I did find another Horror Hill, so I now have 3. But the Vandal one I found on, like, I think one of the random Shubin outposts on Microtech. So it seems Microtech does seem to have the best luck from what I've read, from what people have told me, and from my own experience. I did look around ArcCorp as well on the moons, on the outposts there.
I found all of mine just going to the outposts on Microtech. And I found them pretty quick, too.
Yeah.
Probably like an hour of just flying to one, search for all boxes, flying to the next one, that sort of thing.
Exactly. So I'd recommend just go around Microtech. Like, you don't have to go to the moons. Just Microtech itself will probably have them. There's a lot of outposts there to search. And Necropolis, I thought, was pretty fitting that I found both Horror Hill helmets there. All Halloween themed. But yeah, so moving on to, we got Star Citizen Live last week, and we also had the Spirit Q&A. So, also, which one do you want to do first? Spirit Q&A or the Talking Ship Star Citizen Live?
That's up to you guys. Personally, I thought just from going back to the actual CitizenCon, I was kind of nonplussed with the vehicles, because to me they really didn't show a whole lot other than essentially releasing the Spirit and the I call it the
STV.
Steve.
Yeah, Steve.
And to me, like, before I say anything, I'm all for having ships and I'm all for having vehicles. Like, variety is the spice of life. It's good for the game, blah, blah, blah. But neither one of these seems to me to really be that special. The Steve, okay, great, cool. The Spirit, to me, is just 100% pure marketing, money grab, in the sense that it doesn't bring anything new to the table. It doesn't bring a new idea or mechanic or even visual style or like nothing new. It's simply meant to grab money and be a competitor for the Connie freelancer Cutlass, group. And but having said that, as like as a negative, again, back to, I'm glad that we have more things in the system, in the PU. But I didn't think that this was worthy of SitCon. Like, look at what the 400i was and what it brought back. It was kind of like a whole new design shape and a whole new class of vessel in its design, and bringing something new into it, like that drop down scooter storage, and the fact that it was Origin, that kind of stuff. That's all I'm getting at with like something new. Whereas the Spirit just seems kind of like a rubber stamp of the MSR / Hercules line. And I kind of just was like, eh. But that's my take.
It looks good though. It's a pretty ship.
Yeah, no, it does look good. But it's also grown in size, so it's pretty much an MSR now, almost, with half the storage of an MSR.
Wouldn't you expect though, if they're really thinking like a manufacturer, wouldn't they? All the manufacturers have a ship that competes in size and class.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree.
Just look at car manufacturers today.
And that's where I think it's a good thing. Like, I'm all for having that variety, but at the same time, don't you think that each manufacturer would try and have something that
breaks the mold?
Sets them apart.
That sets them apart. And that's where I feel like this didn't do any of that. But that's only my personal opinion.
I see that. Like, we should be able to have both. Where you obviously want competition with your corporations and manufacturers, but at the same time, you also want them trying to break the mold and make.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, the Spirit drop. The Spirit. I was about to call it the Spirit dropship because of Halo. The Crusader Spirit. You have the C1, which is a cargo with 48 SCU, a wide ramp for small ground vehicles and cargo. A1, not to be confused with Sauce, is a agile bomber, has size 5 bombs. E1 is a Taste of the Future Starliner, split into 2 levels for crew and VIP with a minibar, panoramic windows, the whole shebang. Supposed to be like a sleek, increased speed and agility type ship, competitor to the Cutlass and Freelancer. They talked about the Drake Corsair, which is Constellation 600i competitor, made by Drake. Yeah.
It's the exploration vehicle from Drake. meant to explore your personal cargo.
No, it's meant to explore other people's personal cargo. Wait, I mean, you not don't.
Yeah.
Details.
Yeah. I like the design language of it.
Yeah. Yeah. They also got the Grey Cat STV, which just looks like a Land Rover in space. Like, I can't call it a Jeep. Like the Cyclone is a Jeep. This is just a Land Rover.
It reminds me of the old like 1970s style Baja beach buggies.
A little. But it's a racer buggy. Another reason why it's a Land
So
Rover.
they say.
So they say.
I don't know if I agree with them saying that it's meant for racing.
I think your Cyclone RC, your favorite vehicle is a better racer.
Oh, and shout out to Data Machine for coming in 8th place for that SitCon race.
Was it? It might have been 8th. Yeah, I had a very unfortunate desync collision going around that first turn. I was totally clear on my screen, and then all of a sudden I was up in the air, and there was an explosion, and I didn't die, but my car got bricked.
See, that's why you should use your favorite vehicle, the Cyclone RC.
Oh God.
The Cyclone RC is Data's favorite vehicle. It's the red Cyclone that goes really fast, and he slowed.
I actually didn't even know that it was going on, and then I was watching some other video content provider, and all of a sudden they're showing like the leaderboard at the end of the race, and they're all yelling about the top like 2 or 3 guys, and I see Data Machine's icon like on the actual screen, like in his little buggy, like racing along, and then they display like the leaderboard, and he's like number 8, and then he jumps to 6, then back to 10, and then up to 8, and I was like, oh, I know that guy.
Oh, it's me $20.
Yeah, it was kind of a cluster of an event because the Atmo had so many freaking ships. They had this huge flyover before the race started. They had like 2 hammerheads, a whole bunch of medium-sized ships, and some smaller fighter ships. And when the race finally started, I had like 12 FPS.
Yeah.
And the server was chugging hard. So, yeah.
I kind of expected something like that to happen. I heard about that.
I don't mean... sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it.
I don't mean this as a negative. Maybe just as like a lessons learned or an observation. But to me, Atmo seems like they're a little bit more about the show than the race, whereas other organizations are a little bit more about the race than the show. But that's just my
I think it's a
personal
very fair criticism. Yeah.
I still think they're good for the community, raising the awareness, though, in general.
Yeah, they're all good.
I would say it's clearly working for them, right there. They're getting larger and more involved as an organization into Star Citizen, and it says it in their name, Admo Esports. So
yeah,
yeah, but it's all good. They still put on some interesting events, and I'm not going to say it wasn't fun. It was for the little bit of time that it lasted for me, anyway.
How well does the STV handle? I know it's got cargo space and it's 2-person open top and all that. How does it actually handle?
I mean, it's okay. I wouldn't say it's great right now. I did like the fact that in Star Citizen or the CitizenCon in the panel when they were talking about, or maybe no, it was this past Star Citizen Live when they were talking about the changes to ground vehicles. They talked about why they've changed all the vehicles basically, and it's just in preparation for the new physics entire model they're going to be implementing. So You can't take any of the performance that we have in the game right now as a representation of what it's going to be like in the future, because it is going to change.
Well, I was kind of hoping that maybe this was like the first vehicle to implement that new physics, but
unfortunately, no. I was hoping the same thing, but no, not yet.
It'd be great when we have less arcadey and more realistic vehicle handling. Then you might actually like the Cyclone RC instead of me just annoying you about it.
I'm hoping they make it good eventually.
To open a can of worms, why is it okay to think that way about ground vehicles, but not okay to think that way about like space flight?
Well, you see, it's because you're wrong.
I mean, I do think that about space flight. Even with the changes that they're making with the master modes, I still think that it's going to be overall. It's going to be a good experience, because you also have to remember that we've got control surfaces coming in, and that's going to be a huge change to the way ships function in Atmo. True, they don't work. They don't function in space, but I'm basically at this point, until we get more information and I can get hands-on to master modes, I'm just thinking of master mode as combat mode, and I'm not going to use combat mode that often, so I don't expect it to affect me or the way I fly or do things in the universe that much.
I think
that's my
it's
mindset toward until we either get hands-on or a more in-depth review of how it functions.
I think it's going to be remains to be seen if it's good or not.
Is a big deal. In the sense that they're planning on talking more about that. And I think that would change a lot of what, the brouhaha that's going on in the community. But something did need to be done. Like this was a reckoning that's been long coming. Like everyone recognized something was going to have to be done with the flight model in general. And like you guys have said, and I agree, there are aspects that are good about it, but there's going to have to be some tweaking, and in between those tweakings is probably going to be a very painful, long process.
I look at it a lot like I looked at the nerf or the adjustment in was it 316 to all the ships and the way they function. A lot of, all the gnashing of teeth and everybody saying this is going to make everything terrible and horrible and the world's about to end. And it happened, and it was a huge adjustment because, it was a complete change to just about the way all the ships handled. But I'd say overall, it was a good change.
Was it 316 or 314?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Like, 5 years from now, there's going to be a whole generation of people who are like, what are you guys even talking about? Like, this is the way it's always been, So. I want my Newtonian physics, damn it!
No, I want non-Newtonian physics.
We obey the laws of thermodynamics.
You might get that mix you're looking for.
Yeah.
We also got the. Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
Nope, no, I'm done. You go.
Nope, you go. Your show. I gotta go.
That's why I'm saying you go.
Okay. It's been fun. I'll see you guys later.
Not what I meant, but okay.
I don't think that's what he meant.
Well, I did say like a half hour ago. I got about a
half
hour.
Yeah, you did. So.
But anyhow. Overall, my closing thoughts, I'm going to throw them in here because I do got to go. But like I said at the beginning, I thought CitizenCon threaded a needle. Nothing was too outrageous. Nothing was, I don't know.
Not great.
They could have delivered.
Stood out. Yeah.
Yeah, they could have delivered more, but they also didn't, overhype. So, and that's a hard thing to do. So, I mean, that takes talent to actually just kind of be mediocre down the road and kind of provide for all the masses without pissing off any one major group. And so on that level, I think good job. As we've already done in the show, there are points of contention and whatnot, but overall, you know, I think we still got a long dry spell to go before we get the next patch out, and I think I'm hoping they provide more answers to some of that stuff. And one thing we didn't discuss, but I'm a fan of the new TV set that they created. I thought that was interesting. We'll see what happens, but at the same time, I also was not a fan of all the talk about SC Live changing its format yet again. I feel like it's going to be more of a marketing and less of an informational tool. Or it's going to, if it's not that already, it's going to become more of that. So I'm going to rely on it less and less, I think, because they're already like showing ads and stuff like that. But anyway.
Yeah, I noticed that too, which it was interesting.
Well,
but I feel like
the ads though, that was just a break while they switched people. I think the format change they're talking about is having people in studio sitting on the chairs instead of doing everything
instead of the voice
Skype
call
or video call. And, yeah,
I hope you're right.
In person,
but I think
in-person conversation.
That's okay. So, but that's for my question is that going to be for live, or is that going to be for the Thursday show?
For Inside Star Citizen? I think it's for Star Citizen Live. Also, those commercials were player-made. Those were community-made commercials.
Yeah, those were commercials people made for last year's Star Citizen.
In theory, we can make one and put it up there.
I'm not against that. It's just the trying to turn the channel into appearing like a social media show, if I'm making sense, versus trying to be informational. Again, and this is me just nitpicking. So, but anywho, so I have a concern about that. I'm waiting to see what it actually develops into. Is all I was trying to get at.
The variable crusade against the marketing team.
I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah. So long story short, overall, CitizenCon did what it needed to do. Looking forward to getting more info on what's coming out, and I think we got a long dry spell for before we get a new patch. And yeah, that's about it. On that note, I'm gonna head out. I'll see you guys next week.
Peace.
See you, Carl.
We still have some stuff though. There's the Crusader Spirit Q&A, which they talked about. Is a secondary entrance included in the design? They said no, which pissed off a lot of people with the Mercury Star Runner. The Spirit have a lower EMIR signature than the Cutlass, which the cross section will have a reduced signature. However, no difference in EMIR. Can the tractor beam mount on the C1 be swapped around the variants? No plans for this currently. Will there be any different types of bombs for the A1? At launch, we will only support one type of bomb. In the future, there will be swappable. Which weapon systems can be controlled by the pilot or co-pilot? Pilot controls nose and wing guns. Co-pilot controls turret. What docking capabilities do you have? None. Right. What kind of living amenities can we expect to see for the crew? All three variants have the same living quarters, featuring beds, small kitchen, and shower and toilet. E1 has an extra shower and toilet for passengers because luxurious VIP Transport 1. The loaner for the E1 is the Cutlass Steel, and I think the loaner for E1 is Freelancer Miss. That's correct. Yes, and the Cutlass Black is the loaner for the C1. Will it be modular? No. Will the A1 Spirit have a cluster bomb option? No plans yet. The PDF shows 48 SCU of cargo capacity for each variant. Is this an error? Yes. Only the C1 has 48 SCU. Which Spirit variants can carry vehicles and of what size? C1 is intended to fit Cyclone or smaller. E1 and A1 does not officially support vehicles, but players will try anyways. Is the round dish on top of the A1 a scanner? It isn't listed on any official spec page. Round dish on top is just a rule of cool aesthetic. Most Crusader ships are named in reference to Greek and Roman mythology. Where did the Spirit name come from? With the Spirit's multi-role functions, it decided to leave old nomenclature behind. There's that. That's the Q&A.
It's a little disappointing that the dish on top is aesthetic only.
Agreed.
The one thing I don't like about Star Citizenship designs, well, not the only thing, but one of the big things that I don't like about them is that
It's like this only
they have
exists for
all this
rule of cool. It doesn't
looking
have any
stuff
function.
on them.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it doesn't do anything.
Like, you know, the Mercury Star Runner has a dish, but it's functional. There's a dedicated seat for it and everything.
Yeah.
Same with the Terrapin, though. That's a rabbit hole that we run right now.
Yeah. Don't have time.
Don't have time. The only thing left is we talked about 317, the whole Halloween stuff. We talked about everything like that. That's pretty much it. Oh, there was the closing thoughts. That, we talked about it at the beginning a little bit, but the whole thing with Chris Roberts at the end of CitizenCon. The whole closing thoughts that they did.
Yeah.
I actually didn't watch much of that segment because I was
With
getting ready
Richard
for
Tyrer. How
the
can we-
race, the Atmo race. So
Mhm.
I need to go back and do that.
Yeah, that was a good one. Pretty much they talked about like FPS radar and player interaction scanning. They're aiming for highest level of interaction possible. It should be intuitive, working on removing all clunky aspects. The goals for augmented reality markers of interest. FPS scanner will increase player signature, visibility, and chances of being counter detected. 2 videos showing the above mentioned feature possibilities. Ledges and ladders. They talked about the ability to grab handholds when falling past. So like, oh no, I'm falling, but I can grab this ledge right here. Stop my fall, and maybe my arm, depending on how long I'm falling. Leverage body dragging tech to attach and jump onto ladders and ledges. Free look on ladders, because they eventually want...
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can maybe aim like single hand weapons, like a pistol or something, while on a ladder. So you're not just completely defenseless.
Yeah.
One video demonstration of new, more dynamic platforming. EVA Tier 2, I mean. The goal is to redesign for intuitive mechanics. Plan is to separate suits into EVA compatible and non-EVA compatible. So I doubt the undersuit like the duct taped one. Why not? Or the second life. I think it's called Second Life, right? Whatever. The one that's like 3 different suits duct taped together haphazardly. That's probably not going to have EVA capability. One video showing propulsion and moving across surfaces. Gravlev and Hover Tech, currently in Squadron 42, able to traverse many areas. One video showing Gravlev Slaver Pod, pushed effortlessly over stairs. New flight experience. They're redesigning the HUD again to reduce information overload, encourage usage of MFDs, explained quantum boost, and showed a video. The minimap, talked about a minimap, will be a 3D dynamic isometric view that updates as you move. And they showed prototypes for this back in like 2017. Cool. Ship layouts are included. Not all areas will have a map available. Events. One video showing full Idris interior layout and mapping view. And that's great that they're adding ship layouts too, because if you're on a ship like the Starfarer, where it's easy to get lost if you're new, a map would help. NPC AI. The goal is to have systemic, dynamic, and interactable NPC behaviors. Want AI role tendencies specific to factions. So pretty much what we were speculating about before, they're actually planted. AI must be fun and engaging. NPCs will remember recent situations and actions. Won't forgive and forget just because the player hides. Physical attributes and skill system. How you play the game affects your stats over time, like Skyrim or Project Zomboid. So extends to flying and FPS, not skill gating like aim. More tied to physical attributes, how long you run, how fast you run, etc. Stats will be visible in Mobiglass like a Pip-Boy.
Yeah, there's some aspects of that that I think are okay.
Yeah,
It makes sense that if your character constantly runs, you'd have more lung capacity than somebody who doesn't.
Right. I'm
did
glad
hear
that
some
they're
people,
keeping it minimal.
One criticism was that this is basically a skill tree, kind of,
Yeah.
and they weren't too happy about that.
I think for a game like Star Citizen, keep it minimal or don't do it.
Yeah.
Because then it gets a little too RPG, which is great in a single player game like Squadron, but Star Citizen, not so much.
Yeah.
At least for the type of game that Star Citizen is. I don't think you. Redesign of the Mobiglass is planned using building blocks, finally. Chat channel, ships, WhatsApp, in quotation, like it's not going to be called ships WhatsApp, like they're just, it's going to be like a ships WhatsApp. Galactopedia app, which is the official lore thing, which is an in-universe lore thing too. So. And then you have, among others, added video with the new Mobiglass overview, all widget shortcuts, screens, calm messages app, deep message, all the stuff. They're trying to make the information easier to take for the player. And then also they introduced the Community Hub 2.0, which is pretty much just the fan creations page on Spectrum, but now it's this whole new, it got its own dedicated new thing on the RSI website. So stuff like this podcast we can probably post. But yeah, that's pretty much it regarding all this Star Citizen news updates. CitizenCon was pretty cool. Honestly, the Richard Tyrer and Chris Roberts talk was probably, I'd say, the second to best highlight after the underground facility stuff. Just because that one has a bit more practicality to it in that, okay, they showed off prototypes for this new underground facilities. This is something that we're actually be able to play probably sometime next year, earliest. And it's actually gameplay effective and more than just combat. It's going to affect everything. There's environmental storytelling, all the stuff that we talked about earlier. So that's, I feel like it's got more impact than talk. The talk they did was great, but a lot of it was kind of just wrapping up stuff that they talked about over the last 2 years that we already knew, like the Mobiglass update using building blocks, like the stuff with push-pull and EVA and everything. Like, we knew about that stuff.
I would say the video or demonstrations that they showed the push-pull look pretty cool.
We also have the pick a ship challenge voting ballot on the website, for a large civilian mining ship. So think something along the lines of the Orion from RSI. Somewhere between the Mole and the Orion. The options are Argo Astronomics, MISC, or RSI. So far, RSI is leading 44%. So we might just be getting another Orion, it seems. Which, hey, whatever works, right? Whatever works.
I don't think I have anything extra.
Good.
Then I guess we'll be back later, I guess next week, next Monday. Also,
Yep,
that new set they have is really nice.
The new what?
The new set that they have for all the videos. Jared's little spaceship office.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, not spaceship office,
yeah,
but I guess like
agree.
apartment office thing. City background.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool.
I'm just going through, 'cause I actually haven't seen, like, I listened to it, but I didn't actually watch the footage and demonstration videos now. Showed for like the FPS scanning. I did watch the one for the clampering. That was showing it off on the screen. I mean, the links for all of the videos and everything we talked about, everything is in the descriptions. If you want to watch it themselves. Everything there for people to watch on their own at their own speed. Get all the information from the source. The clampering stuff definitely needs some work. Because, yeah, remember how Siege of Orson went?
Oh yeah. Awkward.
DRG stuff looks great. Data, take it away. Say our goodbyes to the people.
Ew.
Resistance is futile. You will be assimilated.